Russia and Ukraine were all set to sign a peace accord to bring the disastrous war to an end. But then came Boris Johnson and said, "Blimey, that's rubbish." We will tell you all about it, but before that, if you're a fan of non-corporate funded free news and analysis, you have landed on the right YouTube channel. We publish 3 videos a day, first at 9:15 a.m. EST, second at 1:30 p.m. EST, and the third at 5:30 p.m. EST. So next time you go to the beach with the YouTube algorithm, steal its sunscreen lotion. Okay? Let's begin. Wikipedia's page for Battle of Kyiv 2022 reads, in April, initially Russian forces captured key areas to the north and west of Kyiv, leading to international prediction of the city's imminent fall. However, stiff Ukrainian resistance sapped Russian momentum. Poor Russian logistics and tactical decisions helped the defenders to thwart efforts at encirclement, and after a month of protracted fighting, Ukrainian forces began counterattacking. Following the successful Ukrainian counterattacks in late March, Russia began withdrawing its forces from the Kyiv area on 29th March. 4 days later, the Ukrainian authorities declared that Kyiv and the surrounding Kyiv Oblast were again under Ukrainian control. Even the biggest Russian supporter on the planet cannot deny the fact that Russia did encircle Kyiv in the beginning days of the war, only to abandon it a month later. But are the reasons like stiff Ukrainian resistance and poor Russian logistics and tactical decisions correct? No, it is totally incorrect. Turns out the reason behind it was a possible peace negotiation. After the encirclement of Kyiv, Russian and Ukrainian negotiators had agreed on a peace deal wherein Russia would revert to its pre-invasion positions, controlling part of the Donbas and all of Crimea, while Ukraine would refrain from seeking NATO membership in exchange for security guarantees from various countries. Zelensky was apparently frustrated over NATO's cold response to the war and the chosen path of just economic sanctions and no real action in the battlefield. But then he received a phone call. It was Boris Johnson who informed Zelensky about his visit to Kyiv shortly. Former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson played a pivotal role in disrupting the negotiations during his April visit to Kyiv, advising Ukrainian President Zelensky against talks with Russia for reasons including Putin's unreliability and the West's unreadiness for the war to end. The UK went on to provide substantial military support to Ukraine till Boris was in office, amounting to $2.8 billion, making it Ukraine's second largest military partner. Johnson made statements supporting Ukraine's victory and his refusal to advocate for compromise or concessions remain a constant. Johnson made frequent visits to Kyiv. One of them included a memorable walkabout with President Zelensky that led to a Boris mania in Ukraine. Boris became so popular in Ukraine due to his so-called love for Ukraine that the mayor of Odessa made Boris Johnson an honorary citizen and had plans to name streets after him.
From Ukraine, from Kyiv citizen.
High-ranking Ukrainian officials and even the general public showed strong support for Boris Johnson, with social media filled with congratulatory messages after he survived his first no-confidence vote. Ukrainian businesses joined in too, like a Kyiv cafe that came up with a Boris Johnson-themed croissant.
It's called the Boris Johnson Uke, and here it's their bestseller.
The poll showed Johnson with a 90% approval rating among Ukrainians, the highest for a foreign politician in Ukraine and significantly higher than other Western leaders. Compare that with Boris's approval rating in the UK, a mere 29%. The war that could have been over in 2 months has dragged on for 2 years now, with no end in sight. French President Emmanuel Macron played second fiddle to Boris as he too emphasized the need for Europe to prepare for a prolonged war to strengthen Ukraine's negotiating position. Since the collapse of the tentative deal, both Ukraine and Russia have publicly taken harder stances, complicating the prospects of returning to negotiation. The reason behind Johnson's support for war was not very different from Biden's. While Biden was under tremendous attack due to the disastrous conclusion of the US's 20-year-long war in Afghanistan and a series of disastrous domestic policies like immigration, Boris Johnson was not too far behind. Johnson was one of the chief architects of the Brexit movement, and he had promised quick economic recovery to the British people. But under his watch, British economy fell like a house of cards. His ouster was imminent, and he needed a major win. He chose Ukraine to drum up his popularity. On 6th of September 2022, Boris Johnson was made to resign. Now, Rishi Sunak is the British Prime Minister and is skeptical about supporting Ukraine. Ukraine is still warring, losing lives and money on an unprecedented scale. Ukraine should have listened to Putin when the time was right, but Zelensky instead listened to people like Boris Johnson and Victoria Nuland. In the meantime, Victoria Nuland is doing what she does best, fanning the embers of war. Watch this video to understand what this lady is up to now.